What's going on, everyone, and welcome to part 2 of my 2025 Top 50 Roller Coaster Countdown. In the last video, I counted down coasters 50 through 26, and in this video, I'll present my top 25. As a quick recap, I visited many parks this past season either for the first time or for the first time in several years. The highlight of the season was my second trip over to Europe, focusing completely on the country of Germany. Before I continue the countdown, just a quick reminder, this list is subjective. These are all my personal opinions, so feel free to leave any comments on any agreements or disagreements, but please keep it civil. With that out of the way, let's resume the countdown. I ended the last video with a coaster from Germany. Now I start this video with a coaster from the same country. In northern Germany lies a coaster named GeForce Karnan from Hansa Park. I genuinely thought going into this Germany trip, Karnan could end up in my top 10. Rain and wind kept this ride closed the first half of my visit, which is probably the best thing that could have happened. I ended up just being elated that I got to ride this. In terms of the queue and the ride itself, there are a few coasters that can match this ride in terms of theatrics. Without spoilers, there are some surprises before and during the ride that make this an unforgettable experience. Once Karnan drops over 200 feet and emerges out of the tower, it shoots up into this large non-inverting element that looks so imposing. After you drop down and do back-to-back overbanks, the best moment of the ride follows, which is an aggressive overbank in the same direction as the previous one. The lateral whip on that is quite impressive. The ride continues with tight turns and a couple of strong airtime moments. Karnan is a ride I have been wanting to experience for a long time now, and I am extremely grateful to have finally gotten on it. What was once a two-way tie up here in my rankings became a three-way tie this year. Joining Wonder Woman Golden Lasso Coaster from Six Flags Fiesta Texas and Stunt Pilot from Silverwood is the new for 2025 Fire Runner at Lost Island. These three rides have almost identical layouts, and there's not a super noticeable difference in ride experience despite the train lengths being different on all of them. What makes these rides incredible are their almost comical pacing. There might not be stronger paced rides in this tight of a layout out there. The second one element is finished, you are promptly whipped onto the next one. These rides are also intense, with the amount of force throwing you out of and into your seat. I'm starting to find these rides very underrated, and wish people would put some more respect on these small but mighty creations. This wooden coaster is certainly not loved by all, but it really brings the heat. Here is Hades 360 from Mount Olympus. Is this ride smooth? Absolutely not. Are the operations for this ride good? Definitely no. But what this ride does is provide aggressiveness and intensity. One of the highlights of Hades are the two sections of coaster that travel under the parking lot in complete darkness. Getting thrown around in the pitch black really is disorienting and is certainly not for everybody. The iconic inversion on the opposite side of the parking lot and some airtime hills on the return trip also add to the ride experience. Gravity Group started off strong with Hades, but they went on to create stronger rides, which you'll see some later on this list. It had been over 6 years since I got in this Woody, and it's certainly one of the more popular ones among enthusiasts. Yes, I am talking about El Toro from Six Flags Great Adventure. 2025 was finally the time I got to re-ride this coaster, and for the most part, it was how I remembered. The first drop in the back is one of the most aggressive first drops out there. The two camelbacks following were also two of the strongest airtime moments, certainly from a wooden roller coaster. The moment that didn't seem quite as good as I remembered from 2019 was the Rolling Thunder Hill. The airtime seemed more violent then, so I was a bit let down. The ending sequence, however, was just as, if not more powerful than I remembered, with the positive G-filled low to the ground turns. El Toro is definitely one of the better wooden coasters in the States, but there are several more that I prefer. Sticking with Intamin, we head back across the Atlantic, this time to Belgium for Kondaa at Walibi, Belgium. One of the questions I had going into my Germany trip was would I like Kondaa or a similar ride in Expedition GeForce better? Turns out the answer to that was Kondaa for me. Kondaa and GeForce share a similar start to their rides, with a curved first drop followed by an airtime hill, but the differences really shine from then on. Kondaa has a little bit more of a lull in the middle of its ride, with a non-inverting cobra roll, but after that, the ride hauls to the finish line. Kondaa, no question, has one of the best ending sequences on a coaster out there, with a massive variety of low-to-the-ground airtime hills and lateral turns. The other big advantage Kondaa has over GeForce, though, is the theming. Kondaa is absolutely one of the best themed rides out there, and really stands out in the park. GeForce was a great ride, but Kondaa delivered the complete package just a little bit better. Alright folks, big time hot take here. I know a lot of you aren't going to like my placement for this, but here is Iron Gwazi at Busch Gardens, Tampa. So let me start by saying, this is a really good ride. It wouldn't have made my top 25 if it wasn't. However, I have two big issues with this coaster. The first being my lackluster first ride I had on this. Most of, if not all the rides above this, I have almost never had a negative experience. The first ride I had on Iron Gwazi though, which was on a hot day, did not come anywhere close to what I was expecting from it. The other problem I have with Iron Gwazi is how later in the ride, it feels like most of the elements are higher off the ground, which I think partially kills its pacing. This ride definitely has some bright spots though. The first drop is great, the alligator death roll is fantastic, and the wave turn over the station is really aggressive. I'm sure a lot of you had this in your top 10s or in your top 5s, but there's just too many flaws in this ride for me to put it any higher on my list. If you haven't ridden this next coaster and you have it on your bucket list, you might want to prioritize riding it sooner than later. Of course, I am talking about Gold Striker at California's Great America. Sadly, this park is on the chopping block, and even more sadly, it doesn't seem likely this ride gets relocated anywhere. This is the best GCI I've ridden, and frankly it isn't close. The aggressive nature of this ride, compared to any other GCI, is night and day. Every turn, every pop of airtime, along with the aggressive pacing, makes this one of the more intense wooden roller coasters. CGA closing in the near future is going to be a real gut punch if this ride ends up being taken down with it. If you were upset at me for my placement of Iron Gwazi, now I might really make you livid. Just up the road from Busch Gardens, Tampa lies a wooden coaster called Mind Blower at Fun Spot Kissimmee. Yes, I am very well aware I am on an island with this opinion, but this ride, at least when I rode it in 2021 and 2022, was insane. While I was talking about Gold Striker being intense, Mind Blower takes it up a notch. This ride will rattle your bones, but with the pacing and how compact it is, there's not many more aggressive rides than this. I've only ridden this at night, which may have helped keep the roughness down a little, but I've also noticed rides where the train is full also help temper the roughness a smidge. I'm sure if I rode this again, it would drop in my rankings due to the RMC 208 retracking, but for now, I have only great memories of this ride, and here's where it'll stay for a while. It's Poland's turn to get in on this party. You may be drawn to one particular park if you visit there, but do not miss out on riding Lech Coaster at Legendia. Continuing the trend of high-intense rides, Modern Vacoma's finest creation to date is this beast that just powers through its layout. From the first drop through to almost the end of the ride, you experience drastic transitions between heavy positive G-forces to strong eject-to-hill moments. The inversions on Lech are so smooth and graceful, yet they provide so much whip and shoot you from your seat. The setting of this ride is terrific too, looking over the lake as you prepare to take the first plunge downward. This was the ride that really showed me what Modern Vacoma is truly capable of, and I'm beyond excited to see this manufacturer continuing its trend of building smooth and exhilarating creations. My biggest apology needed from me this year goes to this next ride. In the words of Shaquille O'Neal, I'm sorry Ravine Flyer II at Waldameer, I didn't recognize your game. I rode Ravine Flyer II for the first time in 2020, and then again a year later and thought, this is a really good ride, but it's definitely not as forceful or have as strong a pacing as some of the top tier Woodies do. Well, this year when I finally got back on this ride, I was in awe by how much stronger this layout felt than what I remembered. The lateral forces on this ride really pop on the drop, first turnaround, and the 90-degree banks towards the end. The airtime was also stronger, especially going over the bridge both ways, and the airtime hill string following. I feel like I don't have too many instances now where a coaster I had previously ridden makes a drastic shift in my rankings. The fact that Ravine Flyer II went up about 15 spots to this high in my rankings, I thought was incredibly impressive. We're really getting around to some heavy hitters now. Just outside of Atlanta, you'll find an incredible RMC in ArieForce One at Fun Spot Atlanta. I think what is interesting about this ride is while the layout may look a little generic for RMC standards, pretty much every element on this are some of the best they have produced. You have a great first drop, a really great stall, a couple of high-speed inversions, and of course, a copious amount of airtime, including a fantastic outer banked hill. The only moment I found to be a little underwhelming was the trust dive, which didn't provide the whip I was hoping for. Aside from that one moment, this ride is truly outstanding, and it's crazy that this exists at the small park that it does. Since I last rode this next coaster, it has gone through a total retheme. I haven't ridden it in its new form yet, so I'll stick to calling it Intimidator 305 at King's Dominion instead of Pantherian. This ride seriously outclasses the other Giga coasters in my opinion. The speed and intensity on i305 are traits that are hard to find on other rides. I myself am a big fan of positive G-forces and being bombarded with them, so this ride is seriously up my alley. The 3 instances of snappy transitions really show how violent this ride can be. This ride for the most part is one-dimensional, but I do think a couple of airtime hills it does have are better than many give it credit for. We may never see another coaster built like i305 again, but I am grateful that the old Cedar Fair gave Intamin a chance to really show the full potential of the Giga Coaster model. Some really strong rides are now at the point where they're getting knocked out of my top 10, and the latest to fall from that tier is Jurassic World VelociCoaster at Islands of Adventure. Up until recently, this might have been the best ride I have ridden to combine strong theming with a world-class coaster. The first half of this ride really shines in the theming department, sending you around an enclosed Raptor paddock while providing good moments of airtime and hang time. The ride really takes it up a notch when you're launched out of the paddock and out towards the lagoon. The forces in the second half are far stronger and provide fantastic lateral forces going around the double helix, leading to the highlight moment of the ride, the Mosasaurus roll right over the water. This ride really is outstanding, but there are 10 coasters I do prefer over to this one. Back in 2023, I rode this next coaster almost 50 times in a day. Here's the incredible Ride to Happiness from Plopsaland, Belgium. This was one of the rides that was the inspiration for my first trip over to Europe. I had always enjoyed Time Traveler at Silver Dollar City, the only other Mach Extreme spinner built to that point, and I had heard Ride to Happiness took that concept up a notch. That was absolutely the case. This ride features an incredible onboard soundtrack, which enhances the experience so much. Ride to Happiness includes some intense maneuvers, and the fact you face different directions on each element makes the re-rideability that much greater. Add the fact that this insane creation was built in a family park, which means the ability to pretty much get as many re-rides as you want makes this one of the greatest coaster experiences you could have. Ride to Happiness is the best coaster I've ridden at marrying together intensity with a fun factor, though I am curious if a new for 2026 coaster opening up in Southern California makes a run at that claim next year. Is it possible that this next coaster could already be becoming underrated? I can't believe after only 8 seasons, I think Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point is already starting to reach that point. One of the hot debated topics lately has been Steel Vengeance versus Iron Gwazi, two similar sized RMC conversions. As I mentioned for Iron Gwazi, I had one ride that I felt was a bit of a letdown compared to the others. I have ridden Steel Vengeance more than Iron Gwazi, and I can safely say not once have I come off Steel Vengeance feeling let down. If you are looking for strong airtime, no ride out there will provide more quantity of ejector hills than Steel Vengeance. The pacing, particularly in the second half, is outstanding, and it powers its way through every element hidden within the wooden structure. Steel Vengeance is a special ride, and it will be a headliner in most other parks out there. Which is crazy to me because I actually do not think it's the best ride at Cedar Point. That honor I have going to its next door neighbor, Maverick. This was the ride that ended the coaster wars back in 2007, showing that the tallest and fastest coaster was not needed to be world class. I definitely can understand more people preferring Steel Vengeance if you love airtime, but to me, Maverick has something Steel Vengeance does not have, and that is positive G-forces. In fact, I would say Maverick overall is more dynamic than Steel Vengeance when it comes to both forces and elements. Having 2 launches, a couple of very strong airtime hills in addition to having 2 of the best elements on any coaster, Maverick's stangle dives makes this an unforgettable experience. Maverick was the start of the low-to-the-ground Intimate Blitz model, and it's crazy I've not ridden another one that I find to be better just yet. This next coaster is probably the one in my top 10 many would disagree with being this high. To me, I have an absolute soft spot for Outlaw Run at Silver Dollar City. While Outlaw Run may not have the length of other RMCs like Steel Vengeance, what I think it does a masterful job at is not wasting a single second. Every element from the first drop all the way to the double barrel roll at the end feels powerful and has a set purpose. Outlaw Run may occasionally become a little rougher when the temperature warms up, but in general, it is not unbearable. The top-of-track model seems to no longer being produced by RMC, which is a shame, as the slight wooden coaster feel to these rides really adds another dynamic to an already fantastic coaster type. I have one more RMC to talk about, and this one can be found in Poland. At a special park named Energylandia, you'll find an amazing creation in Zadra. This ride truly is the undisputed king of pacing to me. No ride charges through a layout in as fast of a constant speed as this does. One of my criticisms for Iron Gwazi were some of the second half elements got too high off the ground, hurting the pacing a little. Zadra does not have this issue. Pretty much everything after the stall is low to the ground, and it is the one RMC to me that feels like an Intamin. The aforementioned stall is probably the best I have experienced, with the size and duration floating upside down. My favorite moments, though, are the twist and shout, which you turn left and then are ejected off to the right, and also the S-turn at the end, which provides violent lateral force. This is probably the European coaster I have ridden so far that I had the highest expectations for, and I am impressed that it met those lofty hopes. What's crazy is, like Steel Vengeance, I don't even think Zadra is the best ride in its own park. On the other side of Energylandia, there's a monster Intamin named Hyperion. This hypercoaster is enormous, towering over 250 feet in the air, with a first drop at almost 270 feet. That first drop was one of the best out there, ejecting you from your seat at the top and halfway down. Hyperion builds some serious speed and it just plows through each element with extreme force. There's ejector airtime on almost every hill in this layout. The most violent moment of the ride, though, is the dive loop, which I found the back right wing seat provided the most extreme lateral force. Like Zadra, though, this ride really stays low to the ground while traveling at crazy fast speeds. I had very high hopes for Zadra, which met those, but Hyperion absolutely obliterated any expectations I had for it, and it's a ride I will remember for the rest of my life. One of the single most disorienting experiences on a roller coaster can be found on X2 from Six Flags Magic Mountain. Aerodynamics were some of the biggest innovators in the coaster world by the early 2000s, and their final creation was certainly their most ambitious. This coaster is massive at over 200 feet tall, with seats on the side of the coaster that rotate at specific times dictated by an additional rail in the track composition. From a first drop facing straight down, to launching upwards like Superman, to almost being ripped apart in the final Ravine turn, this is an extremely aggressive ride that is unlike anything I have experienced. I still think the next coaster, however, is the most intense ride I have been on. Here is Skyrush at Hershey Park. Intamin have made their mark all over the top of my rankings, but this may be their most unhinged ride out there. Now I will preface, I haven't ridden this since 2023, and since then, the lap bar restraints have been changed. I do have a concern riding this in the future, because although the old restraints were not the most comfortable, and frankly, caused my most painful coaster ride I ever had all the way back in 2017, what they did do was allow for violent lateral forces, which caused the top half of your body to almost be thrown out of the train. However, even with the restraint change, I do expect the extreme ejector airtime on the drop and the first two hills following to remain. This ride has been a great top steel coaster for the last several years. But nothing could have prepared me for this next coaster experience I had this year. Out in Germany, there's a park you may have heard of called Europa Park. Well, in 2024, they created one of the most unforgettable experiences ever in Voltron Nevera. When I rode Ride to Happiness in 2023, I thought Mach Rides really cranked it up a notch then. No. Voltron took Mach Rides to a whole nother level. I said earlier that VelociCoaster was the coaster previously that had the best combination of theming with a world-class ride. That title has been taken by force by Voltron. The queue line leading up to the ride itself features some of the most incredible things I have ever seen done by a theme park. As for the ride itself, there is some more of the same. There are a couple of surprises during this ride that you just need to experience to believe. Voltron launches out of the building upward, and it's non-stop during its two halves. I don't think I've been on a coaster that truly does everything you could possibly want in a ride. It has intensity, airtime, hang time, lateral forces, and strong pacing. Honestly, I was a tad skeptical leading into Voltron that for me, it might not reach that pedestal some people have put this ride on. No, this ride is absolutely the real deal, and it's a special ride to have as my new top steel coaster. But while Voltron took a good crack at number 1, I just couldn't put it ahead of Voyage at Holiday World. If you've seen videos of mine from previous years, this shouldn't be surprising. I'm from Indiana, so I may have a touch of home state bias. However, there is no denying that Voyage is one of, if not the greatest wooden roller coaster on the planet. For well over a mile, this ride does nothing but provide a fast-paced rush, filled with every force you could want from a wooden roller coaster. From the speed, the lateral forces and airtime, Voyage just hits in every department. I really find it difficult to see any but 1 or 2 coasters in the world dethroning this monster of a ride. And that concludes my 2025 roller coaster rankings. Thank you to anyone who watched any of this or my previous video. Looking ahead, 2026 certainly doesn't look to have the excitement 2025 had. However, there is a coaster that opened up this year and another one opening up next year I hope to ride, which could make a run at a top 25 spot. With that, hopefully the off season goes by quickly and we're back to riding coasters soon. Hope you all have a great day and take it easy.